I would vlog today's Lead, Learn, Connect live event so that you could see what it is like as a day for us and also benefit from some of the learnings. So I'm starting with a cup of coffee and also with Sarah. So we go through our agenda for the day, make sure that we know who's saying what, when, and also just kind of calm some nerves. So I'll let Sarah say a quick hello.
Hello everyone.
How are you feeling, Sarah?
I'm feeling excited because I know we've got brilliant speakers, we're going to have a great room of people. I'm excited about how much I'm going to learn from the day.
Okay, so now we're going to go and walk to the location for the event, and I'll show you the team who are busy there setting everything up so that it feels really positive when people walk into the room.
We are now going to get started with the first part of today, the official first part of today, and I'm going to introduce you to the first fascinating feature of lobsters. So lobsters have three fascinating features that we're going to be learning about today, and we're going to do sort of each one as we go. The first thing about a lobster is that it never stops growing, ever. And they can get quite big, and Helen and I know that because we've held some really big mud lobsters. They were big, and they were at the lobster hatchery. They were like, "Do you want to just hold this?" And we were like, yes. Look, both of us looking quite nervous and also wanting to look after these very big mud lobsters who have lots of babies. So they never stop growing and they get bigger and kind of bigger and bigger. And we'll talk a bit about like how that happens. But we think this idea of never stop learning is really interesting and could really unlock lots of learning, both for individuals and for teams. Because time continues to be the biggest barrier that we hear. You ask everyone, all across the world, what gets in the way? What gets in the way of learning? What makes learning hard? Time. Haven't got enough time, I'm too busy, the day job. But what if learning was about doing your job, rather than separate to the job that you do? What if we weren't worried about time, we were much more worried about learning more from the meetings and moments you already have? This is about adding learning in to what you already do. But that won't happen by accident. We think that's a really intentional process. So our job to do here isn't to find more time, it's to learn more from what we already do. So what we're going to do is, in the book you have this lovely diagram that explains the difference between a linear mindset and an experimental mindset. And I thought we would take each of the four areas that you talked about and bring them to life for everybody here so we can get ourselves in the experimental mindset before we then have a go at designing some.
I think it's helpful to visualize a scientist in their lab and what happens when they don't understand what's going on. They get an unexpected result or the experiment failed. You don't see the scientist starting blaming themselves, saying, I'm such a failure, I'm such a bad scientist, what went wrong, right? For scientists, whenever they're faced with uncertainty, there's almost a sense of juiciness where they feel like, ooh, what's going on here? What can I learn?
Okay, so we've just finished our first session, which is about learning as you go. We had author Anne-Laure Le Cunff talking about tiny experiments. It was very noisy in the room because we had everybody designing experiments live. So we had this side of the room talking about experiments to make meetings better, and we had this side of the room talking about how to add more energy into our days. If we were using energy as a currency rather than time, what would that look like? And Anne-Laure also told us about a really good model called PACT, which is a really good way of thinking about experiments. So I'll put that model in the comments for you so that you can use that if you want to get more experimental at work, so you can learn as you go, just like the lobster never stops growing, you never stop learning. You can use the PACT model as a brilliant way to design your experiments. So the first Sarah talked about is that lobsters never stop growing. The second feature about lobsters that we want you to be aware of is that lobsters grow most when they shed their shell. So let's talk about what happens. Because the lobster never stops growing, there is a point in the lobster's life where its shell becomes constraining to its growth. Because we think that we all have shell shedding moments in our careers. Times when it feels hard, we feel a bit scared, we feel a bit exposed. The challenge is that we don't always look for the learning. Because they feel difficult and challenging, and we worry about what people think about us when those things happen, lots of people rush to move on from those moments. But if we approach learning like a lobster, we would re-look at that moment, and we would think, how can I learn and grow from this situation?
So we would recognise that shell shedding moments are normal and that actually they are the moment in our careers when we are likely to grow the most.
Okay, so it's now lunchtime, lots of people milling about and reflecting on the day. Our second session of the day was on learning in hard moments. So this is where we talk about times at work and in your career where you are shedding your shell and you feel really vulnerable. We had some amazing speakers. So we had Heather Fisher, who is a former England rugby player and World Cup winner. We also had Harsh from previously from TikTok, now at Lloyd's, people and the transformation leader Harsh Vekaria, who was talking about a really interesting change that TikTok made, where they got rid of their L&D department, and he was talking about how organisations have shells. So, ways that they are working that are constraining them, and they need to shed their shell in order to grow, which I thought was really fascinating. And then last but not least, we had Grace Miller, who is head of failure and experimentation for Stephen Bartlett's company FlightStory, talking to us about how they make failure and experimentation everyday reality in that organisation. So lots of learnings there. I'm going to put some of the tools and models in the comments so that you can take them away and maybe try some of them out. But now I'm going to grab some food before we go into our afternoon session.
I'm just going to talk a little bit about kind of the DJ mindset and what presenters can learn from DJs, basically saving you having to spend a lot of years DJing in dodgy dives in Brixton. Great DJs and great presenters are both in the business of these three things, okay? So captivating an audience, creating an experience, and making a lasting impact. And actually, I mean, when you think about it, when was the last time someone said that that's what presentations are about, yeah? We tend to think, okay, content, timing, slides. I'm not saying that content, timing, and slides aren't important, but this is a different lens to look at your presentations through. And it's true that whether you're dropping your beats or dropping a game-changing idea, your goal is the same: to keep people engaged, to take them on a journey, and to leave them wanting more.
So we are now approaching the end of the day. Everyone is doing think, pair and share, which is a way that they have reflected, they've done a 3-minute mind map, and then they've connected with someone else in the room, and then they are reflecting on what they have learned from the day and what they want to take away. So it's a really nice moment where I think the whole day is coming together for everybody, and hopefully they can take lots of insights back into their organisation. Okay, so we are at the end. I have 4% of battery remaining, so clearly I'm not a very good vlogger because I've not been recharging this thing. So everyone is heading off now. We've got lots of feedback from people because you can't end without a what went well, even better if. But lots of feedback on people who are taking the ideas to learn like a lobster back into their organisation and hopefully leading like lobsters as well. Thank you for following along with the day. If you've got any questions about anything we've covered or anything to do with Learn Like a Lobster, just let me know.